regular meeting of the Board of Education, Perry Local School District is called to order at 6:15 p.m. in the Tarbuck Center Conference Room. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Foley.
Here.
Mr. Lighting. Here. Mr. Roberts. Here. Mrs. Truster.
Here.
Mr. Welch. Here.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any reports? Anyone have any?
We had the instructional meeting, kind of discussed a few things regarding the students and some things like maybe see the future, work on some communications and life skills. We also spoke about Brooks Gibbs coming up here on November 2nd. So I'd like to get the community up for that. You know, we just kind of discussed a little bit off the shared resources that we have at Fair High School, some of the other local schools, to kind of kick off the year that way. What's that IT meeting? Discuss some of the updates that have taken place to our system. Switches were completed, server updates completed. Had a little overview of the migration status for Google.
One real big highlight for me at the instructional committee meeting was hearing about how well our career development pathways have grown and the interest that keeps expanding in that and the opportunities that we can offer for kids who are not on a college path necessarily.
Anybody else?
Governmental forum and also the economic development. Wasn't really any surprises there, so. Except there's a coffee shop.
Yeah.
On the north side of 20.
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
Yeah.
Really wasn't a whole lot of updates on it.
None of my committees met, so I don't have anything. All right. Administrative updates, Dr. Johnson?
Thank you. Not a whole lot this evening. Although we do have a ton of activities going on in the district, obviously, congratulate and thank all those chaperones and Amy Stavoff for organizing the 8th grade Washington trip. From everything I'm hearing, it was successful and there's some growth and education along the way. So thankful that all the kids got home safely and it was an overall good learning experience. We had fall play last weekend. Sherlock Holmes came to town for an interesting fair, and the cast, from what I've heard, did a wonderful job with some very challenging lines. A lot of studying had to be done, and actually had 2 leads for both acts. So I thought that was a pretty novel event, and so congratulations to Jen, Hunter, and all those kids for the fall play. Tomorrow is Share Your Genius Day for our 7th graders. And Dr. Olszewski, they do their interest surveys and that. They're going to web out into the world. And
yep, 7 career paths.
7 different career paths. And there'll be some stories, I'm sure, for that event. We have Trunk or Treat this Thursday, Mr. Chisholm, I believe, right at 6 o'clock at the PS. 5 o'clock if you're bringing a car. 5 o'clock if you're bringing a car. So hopefully we'll have a little nice weather than we're seeing today for that. And then I just want to take a moment to sincerely thank the board for their continued support. Obviously, we have Brooks Gibbs coming in on November 2nd. He talked to us about ways to become proactive in our continuous efforts to curb and stop bullying. And today, our high school and elementary and middle school staff were treated with what Dr. Malchesky calls a gift. We had Tom Speaks from the Impact Group come in and talk about, with clarity, activities and ways to continue to work and create a positive caring culture in our district. And I was there in the morning for the elementary event and was able to get back for the high school middle school event. And it was very inspirational to me, and I think to all the staff. And these are some of the kind of special activities that through the board support that we are able to expose our staff to, and which will then rub off on our kids and create the kind of culture that we expect in our district. So thank you very much for that kind of support. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any public participation, Jean? All right, consent agenda. I have a motion.
Second.
Well. I wanted to motion that we vote on letter L on the calendar separately.
That's not consent, though.
It's under consent, isn't it?
No, there's only two items of consent.
Why am I, hold on. Sorry. Go past it, sorry.
It's okay.
We had a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lady,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mr. Tretzker.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes.
Mrs. Foley.
Yes. No discussion. I don't know, I scrolled right past. Okay. Superintendent's report, Dr. Johnson.
Under personnel, thank you. Acceptance of retirement. The board is asked to accept the retirement of the individual listed as recommended by the local superintendent and director of transportation. Under D personnel, approval of leave of absence in accordance with the terms and conditions of the collective bargaining agreement, Ohio Revised Code, and for applicable leave balance. The board is asked to approve a paid maternity caregiver leave for the individual listed below for the balance of sick days accumulated, permissible and available, as recommended by the local superintendent and board principal. Under C personnel approval appointment curriculum hours, the board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed to complete the 2022-23 curriculum work at the rate of pay and for the maximum number of hours worked beyond the contractual day, indicated as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. E personnel change of contract classified. The board is asked to adjust the contract of the employee as noted below, as recommended by the local superintendent and director of transportation. Under E personnel approval appointment 2022-23 non-athletic supplementals. The board is asked to approve the individual listed for the 2022-23 non-athletic supplemental noted, as recommended by the local superintendent and board principal. F personnel approval of appointment 2022-23 athletic supplemental. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the 2022-23 athletic supplemental position and rate of pay indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification training, and background check, as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. Under G personnel approval appointment substitutes. The board is asked to approve the individual noted for the substitute position listed as recommended by the local superintendent. H personnel corrective action. The board is asked to approve the corrective action noted previously approved in August as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director and building principal. I, approval of out-of-state field trip to Chicago, Illinois. The board is asked to approve an out-of-state field trip for PSL students to Chicago, Illinois, December 1st through 4th, 2022, as recommended by the local superintendent. But the principal of this trip will be supervised by PSL teachers. There is no cost to the board for this trip other than the use of the school van for transportation. J, approval of board policy second readings. The board is asked to adopt the new revised board policies listed as recommended by the local superintendent, and all recommended changes from a work session have been put in there to the best of our knowledge. A, approval of intra-district shared equipment agreement. Board is asked to approve an intra-district shared equipment agreement with Madison Elementary School and the Real Care Baby Infant Simulators as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. And L, approval of 2023-24 calendar. The board is asked to approve the 2023-24 district calendar as recommended by the local superintendent. And this concludes my superintendent report.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So at this point, if I want to change the motion, do we need to,
So
can I make the motion without?
you make the motion to do that, or they can amend the motion just to pull L out and vote it separately.
Okay, so I'm gonna motion to allow separately.
So do A through K,
Yes.
Yes.
And
and then Jesse, do you want to measure? So this is A through K.
We'll follow with A. Discussion, yes, I'm sorry, discussion. Actually, I had a question. I do have a question. How many students will be going to Chicago?
It's
Fit in a
seven,
van.
6 or 7, whatever. It's Mark takes the balance of what fit in the van. There's a, like a drawing, a raffle, kids submit interest and go through like a lottery type system to figure out who's going.
Great experience. Awesome. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Mrs. Trumpster.
Yes.
Mr. Welch. Mrs. Foley. Mr. Laydick.
Yes.
And then you want to need a motion for L now.
So so we need a
So moved.
motion to move on out.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Discussion like L.
Yes. Only.
Just trying to go over, I know for some of our previous discussions and different counters we had in front of us before, there were some different options regarding the start and end of our next school year. I see with this one, we're still starting on Thursday. We are ending half day before the holiday, for Memorial Day. So trying to figure out, what kind of wiggle room do we still have here? What can we do with this to try and even just push that start back, kind of combining the two calendars we saw before to the 21st and still ending before Memorial Day. Hours wise, students would be fine. They get plenty more than the minimum required 1,001. Kind of figure out here how we can maybe adjust this accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the squeezing of Jello as we've done for many years, and the push and pull now. Again, let's just be clear that this calendar is driven by the high school schedule. No question about it. And the high school, we've taken the approach to do block semester type of school years, which is kind of modeling what colleges do. And so the issue always becomes that back when we would not finish the semester prior to winter break, you'd come back after a break, and then we would do some level of review and then do our finals. And we really thought that caused a kind of a break in the instruction. And then when we brought on the idea of completing the semester by that winter break and having those last couple days be finals, we thought that we were able to maintain the engagement of the kids at a high level right to the edge. Whereas, prior to that week before winter break, it got to be very difficult to keep kids engaged, to keep kids in school, because the Grinch is playing, we're doing what we're doing, we're having celebrations, and we just liked that idea. And then it gave kids a fresh start when they came back at the beginning of January, new courses, here we go, and it was a clean break. Similar to exactly what colleges do, only colleges really start early, really come home early in that first semester. We struggle with that. And so there's a lack of balance in instructional days. I don't know exactly if it's listed on here, but this out of the options, starting Thursday and Friday gets us close as not much, but 2 or 3 days closer to balancing those semesters. Versus I think it was 10-day difference in some of the other ways. And the Thursday, Friday idea is, again, 60%, 56% of our kids are involved in extracurricular activities. August 1st, our high school kids get on campus and they're going to town. That Thursday has become our traditional bonfire. And I think we all kind of understand or felt and saw what a wonderful event that was this year. It's a big back to school rally and a lot of participation, a lot of kids. And so the idea, it's nice to have kids in school where you're gonna have a school event, that we're now going to be monitoring and trying to supervise and do the things we do at those events. And then our, our fall sports are all well in swing with it. There's not I don't think there's a fall team that's not already playing in athletically. And as a matter of fact, our football team probably opens up on that Friday. Kind of felt good. And so while we understand, that full week of, maybe, we try to push it back. We want it. We know how Ohio is. We know that some of the nicest weather is in those August days and that. And so, that's why we kind of push it to Thursday. Yeah, this one sets up at 87 days first semester, 93 days second semester. Thanks, Gina. And so, it's a give and take. It's a push and pull. And so, a lot of what's in this contract has been worked out at the bargaining table with our certified staff. And, that's, something that over the years we have changed through bargaining. We used to have 8 professional days, which even extended the year out longer for our kids. We're now down to 5 professional days, which we value and think they're very important for our teachers to engage in. And then we do have the half days at the end of the 2 semesters that was most recent negotiated, where teachers get a half day on those at the end of those 2 semesters. And then, you get into, we used to move towards Easter on spring break, and now we've tried to lock into that last week in March. Unless Easter falls real close there, and we'll make an adjustment, because then we can steal a Good Friday as a spring break piece that maybe saves us a day somewhere. And so we continue to work and massage it and try to in the end do what we feel is best for kids. And again, understanding it doesn't impact the elementary and middle school as much. It is designed for what's best and most suitable for at the high school level. So that's my kind of summary of, we had a pretty good work session where we banged this around and talked a lot about different days and Easter Monday being off or not being off, or we pushed winter break right up to the 23rd. We used to get off on the 19th or 20th of December back in the day. So there have been adjustments over time. And I'm open to any kind of adjustments. Yeah, we will exceed the minimum of instructional hours that is required by the state. I don't know how long ago it was that we had the 20-some days of winter snow where we had snow days. And we asked our government to come up with some kind of guidelines. And their answer was, okay, we won't require a number of days anymore. We'll just shorten the hours and you guys figure it out. And so we think that the hours, I don't know, personally, I think that it's kind of a letdown to me to think that, we're not going to, try to get as much instructional time as we can for our kids. But at the same time, trying to keep it meaningful. And that's where we get into this. I get it, Jesse, when you're saying Thursday, Friday, then we go into the weekend. If we could just push it and just start fresh Monday, I'm with you. But then those 2 days, we got to find somewhere for them. I guess, we could talk about shortening the school year to 176 days. My kind of discussion on, there's always a last day of school. And that last day of school is carnival. And so it's always going to be a carnival. And so if you cut off a couple days to get to here, that carnival day now becomes a new carnival day. So I feel like you're kind of double dipping on lots of instructional time at that point. Hence why we went into the semester, ending the semester before winter break. Those last 3 days are more instructional now because we drive those kids right to the end, where it gets tough when we're not ending the semester before the winter break. That's what we've heard from our leadership and our teachers. So I'm up for, we changed the calendar last year. We can continue to work at it. We will continue to work at it and discuss those things. But based on what we have now and what our contractual agreements are, this is what we were able to do best with what we had. And
I appreciate all the work that goes into this, knowing that it is quite the lengthy discussions we've had over the years. So I appreciate your explanation, Jack. I also struggle with knowing that this calendar is catered to grades 9 through 12 and knowing our start date of what we have here in front of us. I'm not necessarily in agreement with the Thursday, Friday start for various reasons. I think there's nothing wrong with expecting students to come back on a Monday and start. At our high school level, what I heard a lot this year from people in the community was that the high school kids were back, but yet CCP classes didn't start for, I think it was almost 10 days or 8 days. So they had a couple hours at school and then they were free to go home. So we aren't, and I know it's difficult, there's no magic answer to make us perfectly aligned with anyone. So we're not going to be perfectly aligned with Auburn. We're not going to be perfectly aligned with Lakeland and our CCP and our other colleges and stuff like that. I feel like we need to really think outside the box and be creative moving forward in terms of, maybe it doesn't have to look exactly the same for K through 12. Maybe it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Maybe there are, maybe there's a remote day. Maybe there are non-instructional necessarily, but maybe there's like a tutoring day or a day where they are coming in and getting to know their teachers and it's more of a social environment. I just think we need to really think outside the box
And I
and
think,
look at all that.
and I appreciate
With flex
that.
days and flex time we had before.
When we had the committee of 30 or 25 to go over the calendar, and some of us were on that committee and we smiled, we brought up the idea of not matching and allowing them to run different schedules. And the feedback we received at the time, now maybe we could survey the community again. They weren't interested in the high school kids get started and then the elementary kids starting later. They kind of wanted to be together.
But we're really doing that anyways.
I know.
Because the
Well,
2 days are only part of the alphabet. So.
Well, then from the COVID, the phase ins
Right.
that we learned seems to be so valuable to our teachers and to our students to kind of take a little air out of the balloon and let them come at half mast that first couple days where you're not at full load and you can spend some more time getting to know the kids. It's kind of a slow down process. Our fifth graders are less stressed out by going in middle school and they've got a little bit more room to work and they've got a little bit more of a personalized approach. And we did that because of COVID. And then the feedback was it was so good, we kept it. So, yeah, I mean, that was an adjustment we made. So I continue to be open. I'm going to be here all those days. So I'm happy to have kids. They or not have kids. It's really, I just want to do what's best for our student body and for our community as a whole. And
I could also add, I'm able to speak, if I could understand what we're trying to improve on, I think it's a great idea to open it up and rediscuss. I'm just not sure if I'm clear on like the things we want to achieve, like some wish list items, and then we say, all right, these are some things we could do. That would be helpful. If you saw some things like, boy, it sure be great if we could do this, or if we could do this, seeing that kind of would help visualize.
from our
A lot of
discussions,
that came out.
I can, the partial day stuff, the partial week stuff, if we could bound that, I think that was kind of a drum beat. It's like, why are we doing half part days? Can we just be whole all the way through? And then it's always been, well, can we have more summer? Can we keep, can we allow the kids to enjoy that August when the lake temperature's nice and there's things happening and we have to rush back when it's literally in Ohio, always we see today, the nice weather we get is the end of August and September. And that's a hard, we want to enjoy life.
The third thing would be, are we in a negotiated agreement that pays X amount of days, and yet we would consider maybe a reduction of work days? Is that as well?
You don't have to have kids have a work day.
Right.
So you could have the teachers coming in and the kids not. I don't think anywhere, Mr. Miller helped me, I don't think there's a requirement that kids that are in the buildings during your contract for days. And I know it could be hard to do without them for a few, but that's things I think they would, I think PCTA would be okay with that. I'm not sure. We'd have to talk to them. Because there would be, no, and I'm not, there's some concern because while we know testing and preparing kids for big events is only a couple data points, we can talk a little bit about preparation for those end of course exams, preparation for state testing. And, but in actuality, the first semester gives you more days or more preparation time than second semester because of the nonsense of having the beginning of May being all those end of term exams and state exams. And our school, we're now getting out before Memorial Day weekend, but really the big high stakes testing happens that first week of May. Right.
In some elementary grade levels, even prior to that, so if we're looking at balancing semesters for that 25% of kids who are taking the state
Well,
test,
I don't
we don't have that.
Learning can continue. I don't think we should draw the line and say, well, now that testing has happened, we're done. We don't have to learn anymore. So I could, I can throw that out
It's
real quick.
right. It's
Because
just
we should
more.
be learning.
I think it's more compelling when you have an eye on a prize and you're driving kids towards it a little bit. And that's where I love AP, because of that culminating event. And that process, the grit that the kids have to grind through to get to there.
And we're
I
talking
think
about how
that's
many kids.
important. I think that's above and beyond the content. And that's more about, building that discipline and that strength and of grit in a kid to challenge themselves and push to that.
You have
How
six,
many
on-
AP?
you have 6 on the course exams. And so the state testing is December 13th through the 16th, is those 4 days. So you lose, and you don't get to bump it right up against the end of the semester because of where the window's at, making sure that kids are tested. AP is that first week of May as well. The advantage of starting that semester right away on January 2nd or January 3rd, whatever date it may be. State testing, the ELA is earlier because they need time to turn around and get results by a certain time frame for summer testing, which is typically in mid-April. I don't know the exact date, and then the other testing comes shortly thereafter.
And so with that, there is a drumbeat of concern that we need to get our kids here sooner.
How many students take AP courses here? Not how many courses, but how many students?
Yeah,
Less
I
than
can
20?
get you that number. I don't want to misquote off the top of my head.
Less than 25?
No, you're looking at probably like total number of seats in AP courses.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How
Give
many
me,
actual
give me a
students?
minute. I'll
Not,
check
yeah,
it.
individual students, I'm saying, not, when that one student may take 3 of them.
We're
You're looking at 40, 50 kids.
at CCP, we're under 100.
We're right around 80.
Yeah, 80.
Yeah, and Auburn, we're at what, 25? Maybe
Yeah.
that's the number I'm thinking.
29 total between third grade. levels.
And the other thing, I guess, here in March, you have a staff development day, 15 to come back for a week and they're off for a week. Kids, right? You take the 15th, move it up to August 18th, bump back the staff back 14, 15, 16, like those 4 days. What happens at that staff development day that couldn't happen? And that's just horrible. Does that make sense to move that up, bump?
Yeah, but it does. I mean, the days work, but then your semester days get spread because now you have less student days in that first semester.
Yeah.
And that's what we're
Well, that's
trying
a
to
question,
do.
go back to the staff and say, can we get what we need done in that amount of time?
And then in one of the models, there was staff feedback about, are we really gonna have 3 PD days in a row to begin the year? That seems like a little much.
Yeah, that's the other question. It's like, does that make sense? Is there enough content?
And then even with, I know this is catered to the high school, because I know, when we got middle school, you got half the kids, you said, we're going Thursday, and the other half going Friday, so it's not like they're there anyways. I mean, half of them are sleeping and playing video games another day.
We hope
So, well, they are. Like, half of them are in school learning, the other half are sitting at home wanting to, go to school on Monday and eat lunch with the friends that have that name,
Yeah.
that's the last part of it. So they're missing the day there anyways.
We did receive an email too as a board. I think it's important to note. We all received the same email on September 20th with 12 districts listed that have anywhere from 170 days to 178 days of school. Now, I understand and keep in mind, got to compare apples to apples because not everybody is on block scheduling. So that is something to take into consideration because our students are done with their courses in December. But in some of the districts listed there also have similar schedules with block scheduling and are still successful with their rates of graduation rates and college attendance rates and things like that, course exams. AP students, number of CCP courses students are taking, and all of that data is very closely aligned on some pretty competitive districts in our area. So it's just, I mean, I think that there's a lot that we need to take into consideration, and which I know everybody has, and it's beat that horse, but I really think moving forward, I want to see some change in this calendar. And again, it's designed for high school, but yet do we know the success rate would be any different if it was off 3 or 4 different days than what we're looking at, you know, based on the email we got. If anybody wants to refer back to that, at some point, that was kind of interesting to take a look, but I think we would need to compare those districts to see what is their daily schedule look like to make that comparison. Do we want to take this to a vote at this point? Can we take this to a vote?
Sure.
Any other discussion?
The only other question I had is, at the middle school level, is the phase-in days beneficial to grades beyond grade 5? At the middle school level, are the phase-in days beneficial,
Six,
are the
seven.
teachers finding value or the kids finding value, and then beyond grade 5? Because I know we've heard elementary, I think it's, you know, they're high needs, so, and then middle school, we know our 5th graders are a little higher need, but from grades 6 to 8 to those phase-in days, I don't know what the feedback is.
And to be honest, I don't have any feedback. I hear more from elementary. Jen, I know, or Lisa, any feedback?
I do know that in the middle school, I got extensive feedback from teachers, how beneficial it was all the way through the 8th grade. Again, just to know your student, get to really know them, get to develop a rapport, have an understanding, you know, what's expected at a very, very personal level. I've only heard really positive things, and they've said, please, don't ever take that away.
Good to know, because we're not in the buildings, so we don't know what the feedback is. And then the other question was the end of course exams. Those, to be clear, the end of course exams aren't just like a state test that gets reported out to judge our progress, things like that. Like the students need to pass those and get a certain grade in order to get credit for the course.
It's one of the graduation options. Algebra 1 and English 2 are on the competency side, which the kid has to meet a competency requirement, and there's a laundry list of options. And then a readiness side of it all, which the other tests will fall into different seals that a kid could earn. So a kid, if they do well on the 6 different end of course exams, could meet all their graduation requirements through testing. If they don't, then that's when we go to plan B and look at different options like the pre-apprenticeship and different readiness seals that that student can earn.
I think it's important to know that, like, what the standard, you know, like, we always talk about high stakes testing, and a lot of the tests are, you know, for our own feedback or for teachers, and how is it
Right, we
impacting kids.
want our students to do well on those tests. Is time the ultimate variable? We know that. We could debate that probably for the next 5 hours and beyond. So, yeah, but teachers always appreciate the time because to use it well, it can be a variable.
Back in the day, there was a gentleman, I know he came here too. He did the kind of survey, Mike Onchipinti. He was a scheduling guru. And he would come in and look at our schedules and make some suggestions. And I wasn't here when he was here, but I don't know what, I can't recall what this guy was in when I worked.
And then the last 2 years, we've ended up with we've adjusted the calendar to add a PD day in September after the iReady testing. So if we know that's coming, like, is that something that is going to be thrown in here later, or are we not?
No, I don't think it's on, I don't
No.
know.
We
I
got-
said we were
don't
done with
believe that's any longer needed.
Okay,
It's a great feature because K through 8 has just finished benchmarking kids. It's the same reason January is a great feature though, is because you just benchmarked the kids and now you're reorganizing kids for instruction. So both are key times, September and January for K through 8. I don't think high school would stay the same.
Oh, you're saying for K through 8, so that's January 2nd. Is that what they're using that as? So they've benchmarked them prior to December 21st,
Yes,
and then they're gonna come in and look at those benchmarks on January 2nd.
yes. Point I was making is that you could make the same argument that that's beneficial in September for the exact same reasons. just received new kids, have data on them, and now they're figuring out structure.
But they're not receiving new kids K through 8 in January or December.
Right, they just have a batch of data for kids they've seen for 4 months, right?
It's a good discussion. I appreciate everyone's feedback. Thoughtful needs. I don't know that we're gonna come to a perfect spot.
Plenty of time to start planning for next year and start to move in a direction.
I'll give us some sample calendars for our next work session.
Yeah, a ton.
Well, during our meeting, we'll talk about
Yeah.
obviously what we're gonna do in December.
Motion.
We already have a motion and a second.
Sorry.
Mr. Roberts? Yes. Mrs. Truster?
Yes.
Mr. Welch? Yes. Mrs. Foley?
No.
Mr. Laydick?
All right, or Dr. Thompson, you have an addendum?
Personnel acceptance of resignation. The board is asked to accept the resignation of the following individual from the position listed as recommended by the local superintendent, assistant superintendent. Need personnel approval, appointment 2022-23 athletic supplemental. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the 2022-23 athletic supplemental position and rate of indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. And C, personnel approval appointment substitute. The board is asked to approve the individual noted for substitute positions listed as recommended by the local superintendent. And this concludes my superintendent's.
Thank you. Motion to approve,
So,
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Laydick?
yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Truster?
Yes.
Mr. Welch? Yes.
Back to you. Or, I mean, Chief Financial Officer. report, please.
Thank you. I have tonight approval of financial reports. Board is asked to approve the financial reports from September 2022 as recommended by the Chief Financial Officer. That's the only item I have.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
Questions or discussions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Truster?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mrs. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Laydick?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, unfinished business.
Yeah, I just want to circle back as we're talking about the house flip. We talked about authorization to purchase a house, and I just kind of wanted to go back and talk about also the board's thoughts or philosophy on the house purchase as well as renovation costs, and where and I talked to a couple of you independently, but where do you stand on the home purchase, but also the renovation costs and the sale price? What are we looking at philosophically?
I mean, I think you can't just put an arbitrary number out there. I think the most important thing is probably to know what the expected market value or the appraised value of that house would be, and hopefully to stay at that level or below.
We mean it once.
What we
once
expect to be
it's-
able to sell it for once it's
Okay.
renovated, and keeping in mind, I mean, everything I'm reading is saying we're going into a recession, and this typically takes a couple of years to complete. So keeping that in mind, so we're not taking a big hit and a big loss on the project.
Right now, we have, what we cap at 160,
Yes,
is that what I said? For the purchase price.
yes.
So that did not include cost of renovation.
Well, and I guess that's the question, because if you go 160, put another 100 into a house, that only sells for 200. And I don't think that's the intent.
Right.
I think the intent is you want to try to, again, we understand it's for education purposes. We're going to, it may take longer than we anticipate. It might have some unforeseen costs, but we want to try to. This one,
I would like to stay
you
even.
take the purchase price your renovation budget, and that should be the price that you hope to sell it for,
Give or take a little.
give or take, and we understand the market changes as well.
And also treating it like a class too. I mean, we have other courses here that we teach and there's a cost that comes along with that. So, thinking about that too, it's not like it's gonna be.
And I think that's kind of, we had a meeting, Todd and I with Mr. Zuzi yesterday, was it? Betty Joy jumped on too, is, I think we were kind of in line with that, but trying to have a good working budget.
By room. In fact,
What's
room by room by room.
Yeah, so not just a blanket budget of X number of dollars, but we really want to kind of break it down and say, hey, we need, in this room, we need this, and this, and here's what they sell for, here's another Home Depot price, or here's we can't do it ourselves, here's what it'll take. And get some good quotes, get some good data to be able to put together that price.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, we probably could be able to close something by year turnover, right? I mean, the pace we're going now, it's gonna be a 2023.
Well, there's a house right now that's up for auction. We're looking to see whether we can get qualified as a purchaser, because right now, you have to be an individual who's gonna live in it, or a qualified entity for community revitalization.
It's called the First Look Program.
So-
Auction site.
So we're trying to see if we can get qualified to be a bidder on that. And there's also another house that isn't really on the market, but trying to look at appraised value versus renovation costs. Adding and then looking at what that means. So we're just trying to get some feedback and making sure we're staying in where the board's philosophy is gonna be with this.
So we're saying that we're okay with the wash essentially financially, especially with.
For the experience.
Yeah, especially for what's coming. I mean, we were excited about this year because housing market was
Yeah.
stupid, so.
We had a lot of donations too,
Right,
right?
and we had a fair enough.
But you're right, we're in October, and anything does take 30+ days to close. So we're actively looking, and we're gonna see where we can help us out.
And we can actively seek to grant fund, right, as we did before, where none of the funding at all came from general fund. You know, everything was from tools down to purchase services for our labor.
We shouldn't have to replenish, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We shouldn't have to replenish tools and things like that because we got it all.
Those are still with us.
Sometimes you need new tools, but yeah.
Yeah,
We're set up for success in that category.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're really fortunate to be able to have a program like this, and I would like to see us continue to do it in no matter. what it takes, but I really
And
wanna
we
make it
do,
happen.
we do understand that when have kids in the project, there's learning curves, which take time, and there's mistakes that get made because they're not professionals. So sometimes you do have some cost overrun, but I think we'll attempt to try to keep it within that, or build the budget based upon that.
Learning experience for them too. Yeah.
Yep.
Cost overrun. And I think
Yeah,
last time I asked,
Always
Where we're
takes a little
looking.
bit more materials.
yes, yes. So last time I asked where we were looking, it was within a couple mile radius of the campus. Is that still what we're doing?
Yeah, we're working through 2 houses right now. I think Lou had mentioned one we're a little bit more comfortable with, and Ryan and I sat down today and laid out a room by room budget that we still have to look over with Lou to see, because that auction's coming up quicker.
Jesse, it's the
Next week.
one-
Have we-
it's
It's the one I
you forwarded
think, the
to
one
us.
on the 25th.
Have we expanded our search though beyond?
I don't think
Because
it's
we were
like
looking
outside
really
of
close, I
Perry,
think.
or are you thinking?
No, I'm not saying outside of area, but just to the outskirts or to.
Yeah,
the-
we're willing to go
if
to
there's such a thing.
outskirts. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of supply right now.
Or within our price range.
Yeah. So how's the process going to get qualified for that?
We just had a conversation yesterday. So I think Todd had sent me over the bank information, but it isn't really the bank, it's a separate organization that's.
So it's auction.com, and so I don't know how they decide this, but they have a first look program. So some houses are on there as a first look program, which means the bidding window, let's say, is October 25th or through like October 28th. But then they have a first look program through November 17th. The more you dig in that, it's if your person planning on living in the house, or your government entity that does sort of community revitalization, or a nonprofit that does community revitalization. So we have to submit the application to see if we're a government entity that qualifies for the community revitalization. I don't know if one house on your checklist qualifies, but that's what we have to find out.
This isn't our student Shark Tank auction, is it? Did he?
No.
That was pretty good.
For the other houses, I mean, because we all take a look from here from time to time. And those are, they're just up there. And they're even a smaller one, I think on Madison Avenue, that's still in Perry, that's, I think, 200 something. So that's the problem that we're running into, is anything that is out there is just still inflated.
Yeah, and again, we're trying to stay with the 40 that we have.
Yeah.
Does that help?
That's perfect, yes.
Answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right. Any new business? Is there any more unfinished, I guess, first? Was that it? Unfinished, let me backtrack real quick. OSBA. We're good, we're all set?
Work session, we have a work session before the.
November 1st, okay,
We'll have all the stuff ready for you.
okay, thank you. New business then, anybody? All right, correspondence and announcements. The next meeting is October 8th, I'm sorry. Hold on, let me put my glasses on. Not the next meeting, that's today. Our next meeting, which is our work session, is November 1st, 6:15 here, and then our next regular meeting is scheduled for November 15th. That's the day we're supposed to be returning, so maybe we'll talk about that one first and see if it's necessary to do. All right, and then no public participation, you know? Thank you. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Roll
Who's
call.
second?
Roll call, Mr. Brown.
Well, Mrs. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Leidig,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.